as a journalist who writes about music a lot, I've always loved the stories of the people who make the music, who write it, who sing it. And I'm going to do a little reading in tribute to one of my favorite storytellers from this part of the country, a great man who left us a little over a year ago, Mr. George Hamilton IV. George is one of the best friends I ever had, and I'm one of literally thousands of people who would probably say that about him. Such was the warmth with which he carried himself. One of my favorite things about him was, though, that he had great stories that he had amassed over a career that began when he was a rock and roller in the 1950s and moved from there to the Grand Ole Opry, and then he started recording the songs of great folk singers like Gordon Lightfoot and Joni Mitchell and others. And then he took country music internationally and then became a gospel performer. And so just about every form of music that you can think of that connects to the Americana tradition, this man made that kind of music. I'm going to read a little piece that is his recollection of some of the very early days when he first got into music. In 1956, George Hamilton IV's first record, A Rose and a Baby Ruth, sold more than 1 million copies and landed him on network television and vaulted him onto package tours with other teen rockers. We hit it off well, Hamilton says of his rockabilly buddies. We were all in the same age group and we were all scared as heck. But soon we began to notice some differences, some real cultural gaps in terms of who our heroes were. Some of the northern kids, Fabian, Frankie Avalon, Paul Anka, and some of the others, were all really into the Italian singers like Sinatra and Tony Bennett. I tended to gravitate to the southern kids, Buddy Holly, Gene Vincent, and especially the Everly Brothers, who were still hung up on Hank Williams. It was almost like the kids from the north were trying to rock Frank Sinatra, while the kids from the south were rocking Hank Williams. And then there were the black singers, which was really a revelation. I toured with Chuck Berry in Australia in 1959, and Chuck was an intellectual. He used to quote Shakespeare a lot, but he also had a little chip on his shoulder. He said, "The difference between me and you, white boy, is that when you were there in Nashville digging the Grand Ole Opry, you got to sit inside. I had to stand out in the alley." Sam Cooke was different. He was a really gentle guy, very perceptive and decent. But like Chuck Berry, he liked country music a lot. From all of that, you started to sense something about our common roots. It made me think I came from suburban Winston-Salem. I was a Kappa Alpha at Chapel Hill, and the hero of our fraternity was Robert E. Lee. There were just a lot of things I hadn't thought about. So we'd tour together and start feeling like we were friends, like it didn't matter much who was black and who was white. And then we'd hit the South, and the bus would drop the black stars off at some rundown hotel on the black side of town, and that created some weird feelings. This was 1958, man, and I wasn't quite ready to say, "Hey, drop me off at the black hotel." But I always knew it wasn't right. George always had, in addition to everything else, this real deep social conscience, and it wove its way through his country songs, his folk songs, his gospel songs, and it was one of the reasons that I loved him a lot.